So like Leah mentioned, we just did the Encyclopedia show Los Angeles, which was a lot of fun. If you've not seen an Encyclopedia show, one, go see it when it pops back up in Providence. Two, there's a theme for the evening. They're all prepackaged. The theme for the evening was moon, and they give you a topic. My topic was the Great Moon Hoax of 1835. This is my poem for that. This is called Great Astronomical Discoveries Lately Made. 1. Bat Boy leans, Virginia, 2011. Bat Boy leans against the Camaro he boosted earlier and smokes a cigarette, lets carcinogenic fog dance against streetlights, watches it rise to meet the moon. He was a soldier once, he thinks. It was in all the papers, well, just the one, the Weekly World News, but it has a readership, not like those other mags regurgitating city council minutes and the high school football scores, the ones which dwindle like embers in the distance, smoldering, irrelevant, gone. The Weekly World News is different. Only paper brave enough to tell the truth, that monsters can serve their country, that monsters can go to war, not like the clean-cut Fox News soldiers, square-jawed, all-American. Their soldiers are superheroes until they come out gay, until they join an Occupy crowd and are beaten by some jumped-up Oakland cop who's never seen real combat. That defies the narrative. That's a little too human for the nightly news at 10. Bat Boy flicks his cigarette to street and wanders down the sidewalk. It was only a joyride. He never meant to keep the car. Just something to get adrenaline pumping. It'll be in the news again next week. That paper follows him everywhere, omnipresent as the moon. He looks to the sky, thinks, Verspatilio homo, and wishes he could fly further than his tiny wings can carry him. 2. New York, 1835. Certainly they were like human beings, writes the Sun, for their wings had now disappeared and their attitude in walking was both erect and dignified. They averaged 4 feet in height, were covered, except on the face, with short and glossy copper-colored hair, and had wings composed of a thin membrane without hair, lying snugly upon their backs from the top of their shoulders to the calves of their legs. The face, which was of a yellowish color, was an improvement upon that of a large orangutan, so much so that had their long wings but for their long wings they would look as well on a parade ground as some of the old Cockney militia. Reporter Richard A. Locke puts down the Morning Sun and contemplates his work. Great astronomical discoveries lately made by Sir John Herschel, LLD, FRS, etc., at the Cape of Good Hope, from supplement to the Edinburgh Journal of Science. That he had never spoken to the astronomer Herschel was condensation on his morning teacup, easily wiped away. That he had never seen the Edinburgh Journal of Science was little more. It was enough to give his readers a world more fantastic than the drudgery of 1835, the assassination attempt on President Jackson, months old, the U.S. debt at 0, and paper sales, not much more. 1835 had been dishwater dull, and still the laborers toiled in the streets, pushing carts, cobbling shoes, nothing to recommend the tedium of 1835 until he gave them golden temples on the moon, until he gave them men with the wings of bats and tailless badgers who walked erect, mysteries and marvels, sober opium dream at the other end of non-existent telescopes. Locke watches the paper fly from the newsboy's hands and knows he'll sleep easily, that he would be the only one not staring at the moon. 3. London, 1888. A man reads the morning papers and marvels how they make a mockery of murder, how they conjure fabrications that he's a demon or a Jew, how he eats the flesh he carves, how he wears a leather apron, how he's an actor in the theatrical version of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. As if it's not enough, that 3 whores are dead, their bodies hacked and organs mutilated. He quietly ponders this insufficiency, how it's not enough to be an honest monster. He must also carve himself into their psyches too. He feels less, somehow, insubstantial. He is disappearing into other people's fears, intangible as moonlight. That night, he slices Catherine Eddowes' kidney from her body, sends it to Scotland Yard with a letter. He addresses it from hell, signs it, "Catch me when you can." He wonders, fleetingly, is this monstrous enough? 4. The Cape of Good Hope, 1835. John Herschel turns away from the stars and spends some time in botany. It's a hobby, he knows. There are stars to catalog, an endlessly unfolding array of nebulae. There are moons, he suspects, surrounding outer planets. Another newspaper man accosted him with questions of verspatilio homo, of unicorns and bison on the moon, of his thoughts on the Golden Temple, of its repercussions. Its repercussions, he thinks, is a mummer's play, but he sighs instead and once again explains that he had written no such papers, that he, like everyone, was a victim of the hoax. The reporter frowned as though Herschel had disproved the existence of Father Christmas. He's long stopped caring, returning instead to his illustrations of South African plants, but in his solitude, he glances out the window at the moon that falls alike on Africa and New York City. So much beauty, he thinks. Why can't that be enough? 5. London, 1888. The newspaper editor can read upside down and backward. His gaze locks on the metal printing plates. It has to be perfect, more frightening than the other newspapers competing for scarce pennies. It has to be gaslight and spark for alleys where the moon casts no glow. The words will be truth once graven in metal. That's all that matters. Ghastly murder, they say in giant type, then smaller. Capture of leather apron. He walks away and feels his age in his bones. Too old for hot metal plates. Too old to start working mornings. Absently, he remembers a headline from his boyhood. Great astronomical discoveries lately made. It's been 50 years, but he thinks about that story sometimes. How the moon is filled with monsters and bison living in harmony. He wonders what was inside that temple. He wonders if man will ever really see the moon. He's afraid it might prove a disappointment. 6. Virginia, 2011. Bat Boy makes his way to a late-night diner. He knows the waitresses. They know how he likes his coffee. They pay him no mind. No one's a monster when you serve them every night. He finds a booth near the window, one where he can see the moon shining in the distance like some knowable truth. He's prone to clairvoyance. The weekly has him call elections, pick the final 4. It doesn't work like that. Can't do it on command, but sometimes when the moon is full, he can see the shape of things to come. Someone's left newspaper on the table, and he flips past the war reports, the stock exchange, the foreclosures, and the protests, flips until he finds a tiny item buried deep in international news, a satellite in disrepair, falling to Earth. He reads the story and sighs. The moon seems further away than ever. Doesn't matter, though. He knows the truth. There are monsters on the moon. Someday, everyone will know. Thank you. Whoa.